So welcome everyone on this rainy day, and thank you for defying the rain. And I guess you could say there is a very good reason to do so today, because we have a very special guest speaker, Paolo Cirio, artist and social critic who merges art and activism. And I think he engages in a practice that is more topical and more necessary now than ever before. We have three works of his on view in our current exhibition, Counter/Surveillance. It's part of a 9-part series. He uses the portraits of leaders of the NSA, FBI, CIA, got access to these images by hacking the social media accounts of the friends and family of these people, then blew them up in his street art technique, and then pasted them all over public spaces in Berlin, Paris, London, New York, watching the watchers, so to speak. It's one of his many projects that turned towards the people who keep the structures of power in place, and he's turning his energy against governments, secret agencies, corporations, and all those institutions that shape public space and public life in ways we are not always very happy with. By the way, one ironic detail is that one of the three portraits in our exhibition is of James Comey, the former FBI director who is now in trouble, as you might have seen, because he posted a social media post which is interpreted by Donald Trump as a call to assassinate him, so he's now being interrogated by the FBI himself. Paolo works in a variety of styles and mediums and uses his art really to fight for democracy, fight for basic human rights, for social and economic justice, through many different and very sometimes surprising projects. And yeah, it's an honor and a real pleasure to have you here, Paolo. And after your presentation, which will take about 45 minutes, we immediately open it up to Q&A. But for now, please welcome Paolo Cirio.
Hi to everyone. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here, actually. It's a great event. I am Italian originally. That's where from my surname comes from, but I used to be based in the US, so you will see a lot of projects that are actually concerning the United States. I am in the country just for visiting projects and lecturing, so I am glad I made it here. And indeed, I cover a number of subjects, including climate change, but also finance, the economy, and of course, all concerning social issues, equality, and democracy. Today, I will focus mostly on projects that concern privacy and surveillance and the internet in general. But all my practice is really based on this idea of hacktivism in a way. So using, being a hacker in a way, and I will get there. Starting from a very simple idea that the art can surveil and exposing a regulating system regarding surveillance control for protecting privacy. So here also kind of define the difference between surveillance, control, privacy. For me, those are very specific things, and actually you will see it. And as a hacker, I crack those systems, and eventually I expose that system, right? But then as a white hat hacker, which is a kind of technical term, I actually want to fix the systems and fix the bugs. And that's when you will see also proposals for regulations, improvement in the field of technology. All of these to protect privacy, right? But also generally digital rights. There's a very specific field of the hackers, but also other social values that you will see. And I do that by using the same systems that surveil us. And that's when there is this idea, this notion of counter-surveillance. And so art that can surveil the society of control. And I start from a very, very simple project that is also though very visual, so very easy to see and read. These are irises, so eyes. This is a particular biometric technology, is actually the most precise technology in biometrics. In fact, irises are even better than our face in terms of being identified because they contain more details. So the technology, and it does exist, the technology is actually widely used to scan our irises and identify us through the eyes. In this case, I took a few of these pictures of eyes, irises, that have been used to develop this technology, and I made this sculpture. It's actually an installation, and the 4 dots you see in the center is the camera that tries to focus on the eye. So it's kind of the beginning of this technology. Now it's more developed, and there are, and this is a panopticon tower, right? The idea that we are always watched by someone. So these eyes are looking at us, but at the same time here the audience people can enter this panopticon tower and also become the ones that surveil other people. And that's actually really what is happening today. We are all surveilled, but we can also surveil others to some degree. But definitely social media, the internet, and all the technology we have allows that. And eventually this forms also this beautiful thing in this particular Italian Baroque architecture. But this is just to give you the idea, the fact that I do this, I use technology to surveil the surveillors in a way. And this is a very simple project, but now I will get to in the deeper questions. And I do that as a hacker, and here there is also a sort of history, or sort of like art history concerning this art hacktivism. I am not the first art activist, but probably one of the very few left that is still doing this kind of practice around. My particular thing is also that I look at the ethics of this practice, because of course as a hacker I have a sort of responsibility in a way, because it's a lot of power, and you will see. And also it has aesthetics, so meaning that the practice itself of being a hacker or using these hacker techniques, it is an art itself. So I also question what is the aesthetics, the aesthetic qualities of this. And all of this to protect, after all, inter-freedom, because I am still an activist. That's the actual reason why I do this. And I start from really the beginning. This is a slide from a military journal, and I also want to contextualize the fact that we are in a museum of the Cold War, and I am getting there. And the internet, yes, indeed, at the beginning was also a military instrument. I like this, showing this, because from 1999, the beginning of the internet, and the military, they consider the internet already as a weapon, and they talk about information power, and especially they talk about this 5th dimension of strategy. And they say that the internet is actually not a target to be destroyed. They are already saying, well, this is something we should use, and this can be manipulated in our advantage, right? And so they say to control the infosphere. This is 1999, very, very the beginning. And I like the last phrase here. They say the 5th dimension is malleable. To some extent, it can be molded and shaped. And it's almost like an art statement. And I find it quite interesting, because exactly what I actually been doing. That's actually also my first interest in projects was about the military. This is something I started just when I finished the high school, or actually was still in the high school. And it was a campaign and a blog, we would call it today, a big portal, against the NATO, the military organization. And as anti-war activists, I was basically gathering all information or counter-information against NATO. This is just the beginning of the war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, but also just after the wars in the Balkans. So it was another kind of context. NATO was considered an aggressive military agency. And so I've been actually following this for many years. I was completely dedicated, and I was actually doing this anonymously because I was a peace activist, really. And then I was organizing cyber attacks against NATO as a form of protest, kind of like virtual sit-ins, they're also called. Not violent, of course, but the idea was to take down the website of NATO, and I was promoting this through this network of activists all over the world called Indie Media. This is like basically the first social media ever on the internet. And so through that, I could call everyone to join my protest online using my software that I coded to take down the website of NATO, which actually almost worked, but of course it was quite ambitious because NATO is still NATO. But back then it was still possible, and these sort of attacks are still around. What is interesting is that after a few years, I discovered that they were actually trying to figure or studying my actions, and this is another military publication, that they mention my nest strike against the NATO. And what is also interesting, they also consider this sort of cyber attacks something that in the future will be used also in the space systems. And it's also very interesting because this is like 2000, I did this in 2002, well, 25 years ago, but still it's nice to see that cyber attacks for them is kind of like something that will happen in the future, these kind of science fiction scenarios, why today, of course, they happen all the time. Doing this project also, by doing this project, I also received email from the Russians because they also had an interest to say something about NATO. And I received this email, this is 2006 already, but this guy asked me to publish some news against, around Ukraine. And of course, I got suspicious about it and said, who is this guy? Why is asking to publish his articles on my websites? Yes, of course, it's against the NATO, but he's coming from Russia, so should I trust or not? And this actually was also the beginning of the conspiracy theories that now they are so spread. But since then, there was this idea of counter-information, right? The fact that you could investigate this power structure, expose the truth, and so on. But when you have Russians producing this sort of news, then also when I started to stop doing this project because we couldn't fact-check everything. And today, this guy is part of the Ministry of Defense of Russia, and actually is very close to Alexander Dugin, who is the philosopher of Putin, this guy that is really like trying to have this idea of the Eurasia altogether. So this was actually also basically the Secret Service of Russia trying to look at what I was doing. But still I was 21 and something. And that was kind of the beginning, but I am showing this also because it's connected to what's happening today and the end of this lecture. Now, let's move to the real kind of surveillance that happens every day, still today. And so Facebook, this is a project I've done in 2011. And for hackers like me, seeing the rise of Facebook was a very strange situation because, well, I was using internet for years, but then all of a sudden everyone was using it, publishing their personal pictures, interacting with it, and it was kind of shocking, a very revolutionary moment. But at the same time, it was also very strange to see so many people doing it carelessly, not really being aware of the danger. So I started to work on Facebook, and I did it through hacking it through this algorithm where I started to collect profiles of random people on the internet, so maybe starting from one from you, and then taking all the data from your friends, and then for each of your friend, I would do the same. So basically going potentially an infinite and collect the entire social network. And I collected 1 million profiles, which is quite a lot already from all over the world. And then I used facial recognition to process all this data, because of course it was raw data. And facial recognition in 2011 was also sci fiction, was so difficult to find the tools to do that. And even harder was to do expression recognition. So meaning that now it's so normal to, or you probably saw so many times, seeing facial recognition recognizing the facial expression. Back then it was sci fiction, no one was using it, but somehow I did manage to find an algorithm. And I published then all these faces and data on a dating website that I built to show how Facebook really works in a way. And in fact, on this lovelyfaces.com, you could actually really try to contact and eventually date someone that is on Facebook, but suddenly also on this dating website, and organized by their facial expression. That also means their temperament, I would say. So you could find easygoing man or a smug woman and funny or mild and so on. These based on the categorization of the AI, pretty much artificial intelligence already. And so this is when you find someone that you like, you click on it. This is the profile of this real French woman, Pauline Fabre. So the name and surname was actually real. As you can see, the original picture from Facebook, the one that was automatically cropped, and then the fact that she's sly was determined by the AI based on what is the smile, really, or the eye, her impression. At the time, the likes on Facebook were also still public, so there is everything that she likes. And then I also coded an algorithm that was doing data mining that finds 800 similar profile of French sly women that like IKEA and so on. And this actually was all with real data. In fact, there is also the friends of her, because all data I gathered together and then I processed and I republished. You can imagine Facebook is doing the same every day. Let's call it Meta now on Instagram and so on, including also WhatsApp, in a way bigger scale. And also not just these simple likes, not only just your face expression, we are going there, but in a gigantic scale. The reaction to this project were quite explosive. So the CNN started to cover it, but actually we counted 1,000 press mention in a few days, 2-3 days, all over the world. Like all the main outlets started to, and became basically viral. Plus, people start to use it, and they were mostly interested to see if they were on the dating website. And so these are messages we start to receive. Of course, most of them were just saying, remove my face, even without even checking if actually they were there or not, because it was such a scary thing. Other ones, though, said, well done. And so people that were actually already concerned about Facebook, and then also much longer email of any sort. Some people did find themselves, and so they could ask to be removed, and of course I was removing them immediately, but with all the difficulties of the fact that it was all over the world, so like Japanese language or any kind of languages in this world, so it was actually very stressful. At the same time, it was all within the context of this art performance, social experiment, and art intervention. The lawyers of Facebook also started to be concerned, and they wrote this cease and desist letter. This is probably you know, this is a very famous law firm here in the U.S. They found our home address. This project was done also with Alessandro Ludovico, another media theorist, and so they found our home address in Italy. That's not absolutely public, and they start to mention everything that we shouldn't have done, saying that we stole their data. data. We shouldn't ever use again Facebook. They actually blocked our account right away. And then they also start to mention very heavy laws, in particular this one, the US Federal Computer Fraud Abuse Act, that actually destroyed the life of many hackers and doesn't even exist anymore because it was very, very repressive. And so it's a cease and desist letter still, though. So we start to reply with another lawyers explaining what were our intentions. And in fact, that Facebook didn't have any security measures, and also they didn't own that data. The data was owned actually by the user. And so slowly they kind of disappeared. But of course, also the dating website wasn't online for that long because it was getting quite stressful. And what remains is an installation where there is documentation of all it happened, the website that is offline in the museum, the press, and this selection of a few pictures organized by facial expression as a sort of like a fine artwork. And this was kind of like my first work using photography and especially looking at the social network. But right after I did 2012, I did this other project that's doing kind of similar things, but differently, and specifically looking at Google. So here is much simpler. Also, on one side, you see a screenshot that I took from Google Street View, right? So you go to Google Map, and then you have this option, you can see the streets, right? That's basically when the Google car drive through with a camera on top and takes all pictures of all the streets and so on. And then I take a screenshot of a random person in a random corner in a random city, and this is the screenshot, and then I print it and I make this street art. So I paste the paper print in the exact spot where the picture was taken by the Google car. So this actually could be the corner where you live in LA, and tomorrow morning you get up and you find a picture of yourself on the wall, if you were on Google Street View, of course. And but what I am doing is just really take pictures of individuals that were taken without permission by Google, and I take them from Google without Google permission, and I publish them on public walls. So it's kind of the reversing the process. And I did this all over the world. Hundreds of them, actually also in California, in LA, a while ago. And there are any kind of situation, because of course it's a sort of like street photography, unintentionally. And so you have a lady that is on a bike, so also doing different things, have many. And this is an interesting case, is an entire family that was captured by the Google camera, and the Google tried to blur the faces automatically to protect the privacy of these people. They actually have done it after people complaining. Of course, it wasn't at the first thought at the beginning. But this algorithm, this system fails sometime, especially, in fact, the mom here is pretty visible because she's in the profile. So here, her privacy is not protected automatically. But we could say it's not just the face. You could recognize here people by so many other details, how high, the color of the hairs, the way they walk, and so on. Imagine now with the AI that is able to process so many details of us, the face doesn't really need to be something anymore. And also the higher quality of the camera in a way. And so this is just showing you how this, of course, just one of the many that Google has in these days. Another particular thing of this project, I maintain the watermark and the copyright of Google, because who knows who owns this picture? Is Google? Can I use it? And also particularly the year. Most of these pictures have taken 10 years ago, even longer. And so, well, when you encounter this poster on the street, you understand it's Google. You understand that it's coming from that year. And that's also when the title makes meaning here. So they are ghosts. They are ghosts coming from the past. And we are all digital ghosts, actually. Google has data about us. For each of us. And we don't know what they will do with our data, our pictures, in 100 years from now, 200 years from now, or what AI automatically will do with our face and data. And so we will all come back in this kind of glitchy way in real life without our control, of course. We won't have control of our ghosts, but eventually we are all ghosts of the past, of this digital hull that has been built. And this is how I showed this piece in museums. I tried to be coherent, so I showed the print outside of the museum. So in this case, also this guy was exactly at that corner walking by, and I pasted the exact location where it is. Let's move to something that sounds contemporary. This is a project that also have done around the same time. It was, you probably don't even remember anymore, about this US presidential election between Obama and Mitt Romney. 2012 was the second term of Obama. Twitter was there, but was kind of also the beginning of the beginning years. And actually, the Democrat, Obama, were the first thinking of using Twitter for their own propaganda, promotion, and so on. They were very naive still, though. They were just buying hashtags on Twitter. Here, what they have done is collecting profiles from Twitter, so not on Facebook, and also in this case, 1 million tweets, but actually 1 million users of Twitter. And then I had an algorithm that tried to figure out what were their political affiliation, or actually were political preference, left or right, in a way. And so I basically profiled 1 million Americans based on their political ideas, just reading what they were mentioning in their tweet. And was, to me, an experiment to see how these social media was actually potentially going to be used to profile voters and to manipulate voters, right? And this is like, if you click on one of that, my algorithm defined that is 74% left wing. And this picture, I still have this picture, because at the time also people were careless, so they would post any kind of picture. At the time also the location of the tweet was public, so I could have the map of where this guy tweeted about Obama specifically. And then I also tried to push a little bit more by having this thing that you could actually send a threat to him. And so kind of like engaging them in this cyber civil war that today is such common. But this was still kind of like, of course, a warning call of the danger that social media could bring. And actually today we see what's going on. And so, same for the Republican. Actually, what I've discovered around those elections sounds strange, but was actually 50-50 also back then. Just I was grabbing everyone that was tweeting about the political election, and then my algorithm figured that 50% out of these 1 million users and 50% of 1 million users were Democrat or Republican, which is still strange. And installation is audio installation, actually, where a robotic voice is reading all these tweets, and also about the surveillance of political ideas, right? But here, to me, was showing that it's not about wiretapping what you're saying on the phone anymore, but it's, of course, algorithms that are very fast and efficient to figure what you think politically, profile you as a voter, and manipulate your ideas. And you probably know that in the last elections, Elon Musk did exactly this thing. He used X, Twitter, to profile voters in the US, very particularly, and not just to manipulate them, but also using all their data to profile voters and then eventually manipulate them also outside of the social media. So yes, this became real. Let's move to something that also is contemporary again. This is 2015. This is the work that you can see in the gallery after this lecture, or maybe you have already seen. This called Overexposed was out of the scandal of Edward Snowden, the whistleblower of, I would say, whistleblower of CIA, also NSA. In 2013, revealed that this intelligence agency, NSA, CIA, FBI, and also some other international, were actually doing mass surveillance on every citizen in the world, really, just completely without shame. And that's what I've done. I start to shame the people that were accountable politically and legally for having this mass surveillance program. And so to do so, I was monitoring the social media. I was monitoring the internet, pretty much what they were doing. And I was looking for everyone that would post a picture with some of the directors of these agencies. And so in this case, for instance, a photographer that met this Michael Rogers, director of the NSA back then, and they took a selfie with the phone. I find this selfie, and I made a big poster with this awkward smile, and I start to paste them all over the cities, in London, in New York, in Paris, and so on. Similar situation here. This was also quite a popular figure back then. They call him the cowboy of the NSA. And in this case, it's taken from the profile of Facebook of this lady. I don't know if they were in a date or they were friends or they were in a public event, but she does take a picture with her phone and him and post it on her Facebook account. So I find it. I was monitoring it for months and always looking for these people. And also in this case, I take the picture and I make this actually is in exhibition. This poster as a street art, and then also these are the actual work you see in the gallery, also as this kind of pop art painting. And so in this case, also to expose these people from the dark world of the intelligence, of the secret services, and making them almost like celebrities in a way. And so this circulates in museums, art fair, and people get to know their face and actually get very exposed. And here we get to James Comey. So in this case, well, back then he was still the director of FBI. In this case, he's a sheriff taking a picture without his permission. I think they were in a green room before a conference. And so the sheriff take a picture of him. He looked also a little bit sad and looking somewhere else without asking him, of course, and publish it directly with the phone itself on Twitter. This was, and then I take this picture. This is actually Lower East Side in New York, a very trafficked part, and then I make a painting. This also here in the exhibition. And so I actually have done it for 9 of these figures. This is the director of the CIA, and some of them were also under scrutiny more. And for doing this project, of course, was also a lot of research about their role, their political involvement, their history. And so it became almost a journalistic investigation in a certain way. And in some exhibition, I also show everything together. So the screenshot, the poster campaign, and then the fine art work on top. And so I move forward very fast. Sorry, I have so many works, but we are getting there. This is a project specifically also in the United States, Obscurity and the Right to Remove. The titles are but kind of 2 things, and now you will see from 2016. In this case, I don't expose the powerful ones, but I try to protect the privacy of the poor ones, or actually even the criminals. So as you know, in this country, many people are arrested all the time. Actually, there is the highest rate of incarceration in the world. They even say there's between 60 to 80 million people that have been arrested in the past 20, 30 years, actually 30, 40 years. Just to say that 60 million is the entire population of France, so this kind of scale. The problem also is that the criminal data that is produced when someone is getting arrested is considered in the public domain, it's public data. So here we are looking at a screenshot of a jail, a random jail in this country, don't even know where it is. Imagine how many jails there are in this country, county jails, city jails, and then massive jails. And so they have a website where they publish everyone that gets arrested. We, of course, we won't trust all the data they publish, but definitely there is a picture, name, surname, data, what kind of offense, crime, and so on. So because this data is public, then start to end up in the hands of everyone, and particularly to Mugshot's website that maybe you heard of, or maybe you encountered, maybe also printed on a magazine. There were also printed magazines here. So my operation in this case was to take 10 millions of these mugshots, so it was quite a big amount already. And then I blurred them, as you can see, to protect their privacy, and I republished on a cloned website. So basically, I was stealing the identity of real mugshot websites. Actually, I've done it on 6 websites, and pretending to be a mugshot website. And then publishing this picture blurred, and also with the name and surname completely shuffled. So that when you were looking for a criminal, or maybe your neighborhood, or anyone that you wanted to look up, on Google, in the search results, instead of finding, well, you would find a picture of someone that looks similar, maybe with a surname that looks similar, you would click, and instead of ending on the J website, instead of ending on the Mugshot website, you would end on my website, where you would land in a page like this, that the picture is blurred, there is a name and surname, but it's not related. So this was basically injecting noise in this huge amount of public data about criminals in the United States. And still everything shuffled, but I did kept something accurate, the gender and the race. Just because eventually you do want to hold accountable the police if they are arresting more people of a certain range, or race, or gender. So the thing here of these are the fine artworks that came out from this project. Out of 10 million mugshots, of course, impossible to see all these pictures. This is also another question of like art in these days. There are so many pictures out there that humans cannot see it. So I selected a few. I selected a few that look more interesting to me visually, aesthetically. Here the concept is that yes, by blurring these mugshots, I protect the privacy of these criminals or people who have been arrested. But also it's a question of judging people online, and especially through a picture. So here the shades of colors is also our kind of perceptions, thinking, is this a real dangerous person, or was he arrested for a mistake or for racial things? And so these are our biases that we all have inevitably are projected in these blurred pictures. But then imagine the same bias that we have within the AI systems. So all these things are automated today. Imagine the AI, what is looking at now is looking, first of all, these are criminals for AI, because if they have a mugshot, they're obviously criminal. But of course not. We don't know their context. They probably have been arrested because they were smoking a joint. Maybe they were arrested because there was a mistake. They were released one day after, or maybe they were actually serial killer, actually. That's also another question. And so here in the installation, I have the few that are featured, and then a background is actually very infinite amount of mugshots, because again, there are 10 millions. By doing this project, I also received a cease and desist letter. And this was actually from the actual mugshot websites that start to say, hey, you are stealing our business and stealing traffic from our sites. And this was actually also pretty aggressive against, it was a synthesis letter, but was pretty aggressive. But I didn't get too much scared, and also I thought that anyway I had to keep going. The funny thing that the owner of this company, after just a week, they got arrested because actually they were the ones that were pretty much doing blackmail against people that have been exposed on these mugshot websites. And that's what started to happen. People start to write me, a lot of people start to write me, because again, we are talking about dozens of millions of people, and the ones that eventually are very concerned about having their mugshots online, they cannot figure how to take it down. And they were writing me and say, please help me, explain what's going on, this is what happened to me, this mugshot website are asking me money for removing from their website, but that's not enough. And the stories were very sad, of course, terrible. I mean, this is a very small selection. I received hundreds of these emails. Some people could understand better what was going on, and unfortunately, as you can imagine, some people didn't really have no idea what was going on. And these mugshot websites were so bad, they still exist, but it's a little less common, that if you pay to remove the picture, they know that you're willing to pay. So they would republish the same picture on another website, and this could keep going for years. And this, of course, is relating to young people, older people, people that have business, but like, as you know, it's so common in this country. Of course, in Florida even more, in Arizona, in Texas, every state here is a different story, but very similar. And so out of this, I decided to start a campaign to enact or promote a privacy policy in the United States that would allow people to remove those pictures. So that would be their legal rights to do so. And this campaign went on for a while. I involved also legislators, journalists, and something changed, but in this country things change very strangely. And it's something that actually in Europe we do have, and it's called the right to be forgotten. It's actually a privacy law in Europe that would allow you to remove a picture that is impacting your privacy from the internet and from search results in particular. And this has to do with the idea that we can remove information from the internet. So it has to do with the idea of disinformation, revenge porn, fake news, deep fakes, that, believe me, at the time was so fresh that I had to fight to convince people that we had to remove bad stuff from the internet, because there was still this idea of complete freedom and free speech absolutism in a way that, we still actually see today. If you think about regulating AI and the current administration, what is doing, and also about removing disinformation from the internet, is still actually going on. But this time it's clear what are the reasons. Back then, people were still like defending it as freedom of speech and so on. Anyway, this was a while ago. Let's move on this, sociality. This is less pictures, a little bit more technical. In this project, I collected patents of technology, patents of social media, actually. Also here by hacking, actually, the patent office of the United States, I could collect 20,000 of these patents. And then I looked particularly for the patents, the technology that is meant to discriminate, polarize, control, producing addiction, deception, manipulation, censorship, targeting, profiling, biometrics, and surveillance. And so this was also through algorithms that let me filter through this huge amount of data. And what I discovered is that there were some patents that were beyond surreal situation. And then when I found the most concerning one, I printed them out and I they went to the major colleges in US, this is Harvard, and they start to paste them or tape them to make the point that these technologies are actually dangerous for society and we should ban them. And so, for instance, this is a patent that is called System Method for Identifying Person Having Socially Unacceptable Behaviors, whatever it means. And so in this case, I am basically advocating this is a dangerous technology. It shouldn't be available. So this one is one that is actually very common. System method for deep targeting advertising based on social behaviors. And this is, of course, advertisement, but it could be also for political reasons or any reasons or medications. And deep targeting is really going through more than your likes, every data that they collect about you, and then especially based on social behaviors. And so this also should be banned. This is Stanford. This is actually inside the MIT lab that is developing AI, and this is a patent that tries to figure how much money you make or how much money you have, and based on that you will see things differently on the internet, especially prices, right? So this, of course, is also discrimination and should be banned. And then, well, there are so many. I just want to show you a little range. I also want to show you this because it also gives a sense of how complex is surveillance today. This is a patent actually by Facebook that is not looking only at your picture, but is looking at everything around your picture, especially every other person around your picture, and then it tries to understand the context. So it's not looking for your facial expression, it's trying to understand the context, the social context where you are. What's interesting about these patents is the aesthetics of it. These are basically engineers that use clip art. Some of them are even made by hand with a pencil, and they could never expect that someone like me would take those drawings and make an artwork and expose them. This one is looking for your cat in the picture, but eventually also your windows, your couch in the picture. So that's, again, is not only your face. Everything in the picture you post, this is also Facebook, by the way, everything you post on Instagram and Facebook is read by the AI in this way. This is actually even old patent. Now they're probably even more sophisticated. This one is looking at your bit rate, heart rate. In the video. So if you are in a camera and you're maybe taking a selfie or maybe you're just in a video, this is able to look at your heart rate that you have in your veins, and based on that, figuring what is your mental state mode. And eventually, based on that, you will see your feed will change. So that if you feel anxiety today and you have a video on Instagram, basically Instagram is able to figure that you have anxiety, and it will show you some particular stuff. Just to show you how, this is just a few examples. There are even some that are even crazier. And they all work together, and also they are private properties. They can be sold and traded constantly. Those are patents. And that's actually what happened. So what I discovered that some patents were sold from Facebook to Bank of America, or the other way around, because also financial firms have interest to own those patents, because of course they have quite a value. And I made a book. Actually, you're invited to buy this book. It's very fun too. Some of them are very crazy. It's a coloring book that you can give to your younger friends, so they get to know what is happening. And then in the installation, I make these huge walls that is meant to be kind of overwhelming surrounding situation of having all these technologies working together, controlling, manipulating, surveilling us. Or a big wall, these gigantic walls that have the same effects. Okay, let's move back to facial recognition. This is a very popular work I've done in 2020. And in this case, I used facial recognition against the police. 20 years later, facial recognition is super powerful, I discover. In fact, look at here, even a small eye is detected, even a nose or an ear is detected, and is available to everyone. So in this project, I was focused on France. I collected 1,000 public pictures of police officers, simply going on Google, search for Paris, football match, Marseille, and so on, taking those pictures, and then running automatically facial recognition to extract 4,000 faces, and publishing them on this website called capturepolice.com, where everyone could identify these police officers. So if you knew this guy, you could actually type the name and surname, or maybe even the home address. So crowdsourcing the identification of police officers, which is very dangerous for them, but also for me. And then if it wasn't enough, I also start to print them out and paste them in the center of Paris, and also where police officers actually had police brutality, so they were shooting, so bringing, restaging in a way these situations. But some of them are kind of also funny because, of course, it was in a situation like this, facial recognition take out any pictures in any kind of expression. So some of them are also street art kind of funny pictures. And then I made this big installation in this museum in France, which actually, again, is a small selection. It's not just very few pictures I had. And in this installation, you are faced with as an audience, you are faced with this wall of police officers that are in front of you. So it's quite emotionally striking. And then some of them in the center are framed and they are shooting straight to you. And this is a very particular thing in France where police officers can shoot straight to, actually there are cases of mutilation because they are shooting to the eyes of protesters. And they are doing by covering themselves, or anyway, this situation of police brutality were not really followed by justice system there. And nevertheless, the French police was using facial recognition in public space, and actually was also using by matching this data with the mugshots, something similar. In fact, they had 18 million records, much less than the US, but they were actually using it. And this was a sort of already something that I will explain, was already a little bit illegally done. The police officers have unions in France. Of course, France has many unions actually for the police, and they start to react very fast. They were very concerned and actually start to tweet against this project, saying this is terrible, something should be done, do something about it. And that's what happened. The French Interior Minister tweeted after a couple of days, barely, saying that I was doing something terrible, they would have brought me to the courts, and also he asked that the exhibition will be taken down. And actually this is like this interior minister in France, it would be almost J.D. Vance in the United States. It's not the vice minister, but actually today this guy is the the minister of justice in France. It's still the government of Macron. And so it was quite a big deal. And in fact, the museum did censor the installation. And this is the picture when they are covering the installation I was showing you. So it's like basically, it's a rare case of censorship in a democracy like France. And the police, super happy, even produced this sort of meme saying, oh, finally the project ended, has been censored. So this is the follow-up. But really what was interesting was to see how people were reacting to this project, and the press, of course, this generated quite a lot of press. This is a YouTube video that has 1,000 comments, and some people really like this project, especially protesters. Some others didn't like it. It was very interesting, the fact that there was a debate about it. But nevertheless, I've done all of it because of a campaign that was meant to ban facial recognition in all Europe. This is a campaign I launched before the provocation of the police. So that's when I start to have this strategy where I already have the campaign, then I do the provocation, and everything comes together to prove something, and also to have the support of a broader audience. So this campaign had this is in Spanish, sorry, but this is a petition I had connected to this campaign. I collected 50,000 signatures, and then I made all these in a package, also with investigation about countries in Europe that were using facial recognition, but without permission. And then I sent everything to the European Commission, that would be the White House in Europe, and the European Commission replies me and say, yes, you're right, facial recognition is used in Europe, but there is not a proper legal regulatory framework. We are working on it, and in fact now today in Europe you have this regulation called the AI Act, and facial recognition and biometric identification is pretty much banned. And so this was also the confirmation that they were acknowledging my campaign. Okay, so we are going to the end, to today, 2025. Don't need to explain much, but definitely we are seeing what is AI today and what is cyber warfare between Russia and China, but also in Israel. We also are all pretty much aware of the danger of social media and how social media became such a weapon, a war weapon. And so you may have heard about the arrest of Pavel Durov, a Russian guy, CEO of Telegram. Telegram is not much used in the US, but Telegram is like huge in Europe and elsewhere. It's kind of WhatsApp, really. It's pretty much like WhatsApp. So this guy has been arrested. He denies that he's connected to Putin, but actually some people have some stronger opinion about it. Also because Telegram is known to protect privacy, but actually the reality is that not absolutely. And so it's actually is used by the Russians probably to read chats. And then the TikTok case that probably you're very familiar. And so this is the case when now social media are clearly used in this warfare. And then we have the question of X, but also the question that these guys now own the infrastructures, so they own the Starlink. So in a case of blackout of the internet, we all have to switch to this network, and this is another huge concern for net neutrality, but also for eventually manipulation of information and so on. And somehow I decided to launch a campaign against Elon Musk and X. This is something I, again, done right before things started to go bad, and was September of last year, 2024, and it was actually very concerned because of the disinformation. Suddenly, X was spreading very fast, and so I proposed this campaign to the European Commission, in this case, to ban completely the platform and considering it as dangerous for society. And I collected, actually, I think now there are 4,000 or 5,000 signatures. And I did it through a lot of ways. I actually still going on. This project is new, but also in this case, I am engaging with regulators and journalists and so on in Europe. This is the Parliament of Europe in Strasbourg. And so still keep going and fighting pretty much. And the questions are many. And here people would, in that case, for instance, people would say, well, but banning social media would be against free speech, free press. But here I want to show that things are much more complex. And it's not just freedom of expression, it's not only manipulation, things are actually dangerous for real, but also because of that we need to understand all the differences between freedom of expression and who actually is manipulating us and destroying democracy today. And so this is just a raw list of all things that are about the ethics of these questions. And this is pretty much everything. Everything is also available on my website that at this point is a huge huge archive of press coverage, other many projects. I didn't talk about that tonight. And you can watch videos in particular. There are quite a few videos that are very funny and very interesting. And so you are welcome to keep enjoying this. Thank you so much.